You know how sometimes the smallest things in life mean the most? For my grandma, it was her patio. I remember the first time she told me about it. We were sitting in her kitchen, the smell of fresh apple pie drifting through the air, and she said, "Honey, one day I'm going to have a little shaded spot out back, a place to sit with my tea, maybe put a rocking chair or two. That's my dream." It sounded simple, ordinary even, but to her, it was everything. My grandma had spent her whole life putting everyone else first, her kids, her neighbors, her church. She was the type of woman who'd give you the last cookie on the plate and pretend she wasn't hungry. She deserved that patio. So when she finally saved enough money, we all pitched in to make it happen. The lumber was delivered, the pergola-style roof went up, and she strung the soft white fairy lights across the beams. I'll never forget the look on her face the first night it was finished. She sat there in her chair, mug in hand, and whispered, "Perfect, just perfect." And it really was. The patio looked like something out of a home magazine. Flowers hanging in pots, a little bird feeder, a wind chime that sang whenever the breeze came through. But then came the envelope. I found it tucked in the screen door a few days later when I came to visit her. A bright yellow slip with big block letters. Notice of violation. "Grandma, what's this?" I asked, holding it up. She frowned, sliding on her glasses. "Oh, I don't know. Let me see." Her eyes scanned the paper, and I watched her shoulders slump. "They're saying my patio is against HOA rules." I laughed at first because I thought it had to be a mistake. Against the rules for what? It's not hurting anyone. But her face stayed serious. "They say it wasn't approved, that it violates the architectural uniformity standards, whatever that means." Now, let me tell you something about my grandma. She's tough as nails. This is the same woman who raised 3 kids on her own after my grandpa passed, who fixed her own sink when no one else would. She deserved that patio. So when she finally saved enough money, we all pitched in to make it happen. The lumber was delivered, the pergola-style roof went up, and she strung the soft white fairy lights across the beams. I'll never forget the look on her face the first night it was finished. She sat there in her chair, mug in hand, and whispered, "Perfect, just perfect." And it really was. The patio looked like something out of a home magazine. Flowers hanging in pots, a little bird feeder, a wind chime that sang whenever the breeze came through. But then came another and another and another. Grandma tried to pay it quietly, thinking maybe it would make the problem go away. But it didn't. 2 days later, there was another, and then another, each one bigger than the last. I could see the stress eating her alive. She stopped inviting friends over to sit on the patio. She unplugged the fairy lights. She even stopped using the rocking chair she loved. And that broke me. "Grandma," I said, one night, "they can't just bully you like this. You've lived here for 20 years. You've paid every due, followed every rule. You deserve this patio." She shook her head, her voice trembling. "Sweetheart, you don't understand. The HOA, they can put a lien on my house. They can take it away." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a patio anymore. It was about her home, her peace, her dignity. I made a decision right then. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one. But I had no idea just how ugly things were about to get. Because the next morning, we woke up to find the HOA president himself, clipboard in hand, standing in Grandma's backyard. And he wasn't alone. The sight of him standing there made my blood boil. He was tall, with slicked-back gray hair, wearing a polo shirt with the HOA logo embroidered on it, like he was some kind of sheriff. He didn't knock. He didn't call. He just let himself into my grandma's backyard, as if he owned the place. "Excuse me," I snapped, storming out the back door. "What do you think you're doing back here?" The man barely glanced at me. He was busy scribbling notes on his clipboard. "This structure is in violation of community standards," he said flatly. "Per Section 12, Paragraph 4, all exterior modifications must be pre-approved by the board." Grandma shuffled out behind me, clutching her sweater. "Mr. Thorne, please, I didn't know. I just wanted a place to sit outside." That's when I realized who he was. Ezra Thorne, HOA president. The kind of man people whispered about at block parties, but never confronted directly. He ran the association like it was his personal kingdom. He smirked at her the way a cat might look at a mouse. "Rules are rules, Mrs. Blackwood. We can't make exceptions. Otherwise, the neighborhood falls apart." "Falls apart?" I shot back. "Over a patio with some flowers and fairy lights? Are you serious?" He didn't even flinch. "This is your second violation notice. If it's not removed by the end of the month, we'll escalate fines. And if fines don't work, well," he tapped his clipboard with the end of his pen, "we have other ways." Grandma's hands shook. "Please, Ezra, this is my home. I've lived here longer than you've been president. I just wanted somewhere peaceful to sit." "Then you should have asked permission." His tone was ice cold. "Ignorance isn't an excuse." I stepped closer, trying to hold back my anger. "You can't just walk into her yard without asking. That's trespassing." Finally, he looked up at me, a mocking smile spreading across his face. "Call it what you want. I'm doing my duty. Some of us actually care about this community." And with that, he turned and walked out, scribbling one last note before letting the gate slam behind him. The silence afterward was heavy. Grandma sank into her rocking chair, her shoulders trembling. "Honey, I don't want to fight him. People who go against the HOA, they always lose." But I wasn't about to let that happen. "Grandma," I said firmly, "we're not tearing down this patio. Instead, we're going to fight. And if we have to, we'll take this public. Trust me, people love a good David versus Goliath story." She gave me a weary smile. "Oh, honey, I don't want you getting dragged into this mess." But I already was. Because later that day, I caught Ezra back at the property, only this time he wasn't alone. 2 other board members were with him, snapping photos of Grandma's patio from every angle like they were gathering evidence for a crime scene. That was it. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Hey," I shouted from the porch, "you're on private property. Leave before I call the cops." One of the women scoffed. "We have every right. This is HOA business." "HOA business doesn't give you the right to trespass. This is harassment." Ezra stepped forward, pointing a finger at me. "Careful, young lady. Interfering with board duties can result in additional fines." I almost laughed. "You can find all you want, but if you don't get off this property in the next 30 seconds, I'll be dialing 911. There was a long, tense pause. Finally, Ezra gave a tight smile. "You'll regret this." They left, but not before snapping a few more pictures and muttering under their breath. I knew what was coming. This wasn't just about fines anymore. This was turning into a war. And the next move they made, it shocked even me. It didn't take long for the next hit to come. 2 mornings later, Grandma called me in a panic. Her voice shook through the phone. "Honey, you need to get over here. They've done something." I rushed over, heart pounding, and when I pulled up to her house, my jaw dropped. There, nailed right onto her front door, was a huge red paper stamped with the words, "Final notice, property in violation, patio to be removed immediately." And right beneath it, in smaller print, Failure to comply will result in HOA action, including removal of unauthorized structures by force." "They can't do this," I muttered, ripping the notice down. My hands were shaking with anger. "They can't just threaten to come onto your property and destroy it." Grandma sat at the kitchen table, clutching her teacup so tightly I thought it might shatter. "Honey, what if they do, though? What if they come when I'm not home?" That's when I made the call. I dialed the non-emergency police line, explained the situation, and within 20 minutes a patrol car rolled up. 2 officers stepped out, looking more curious than concerned. "Good afternoon," one of them said. "We got a report about possible trespassing and threats?" "Yes," I said, pointing toward the crumpled red notice. "The HOA president and his board have been coming onto my grandma's property without permission. They've threatened fines, harassment, and now they're saying they'll forcibly remove her patio." The older officer took the paper, skimmed it, and sighed. "Well, this looks like a civil matter. We don't usually get involved in HOA disputes." I felt my stomach drop. "So what, you're just going to let them break into her yard and tear down her property?" The second officer, younger, glanced at Grandma. She looked so small and fragile sitting there at the table. He shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, has anyone entered your home without permission?" "No," Grandma whispered, "but they walk into my backyard whenever they want, and now they're saying they're coming to take my patio." The older cop rubbed his chin. "Okay, here's the deal. They can fine you, sure. They can file liens if the bylaws allow it. But they can't just send people onto your property and start tearing things down. That's trespassing and destruction of property. If they try that, call us immediately. We'll handle it." I felt a flicker of relief. "So you're saying they don't have the legal right to do this?" He nodded firmly. "Correct. HOA rules don't override state law. Property damage is a crime. Period." Grandma let out a shaky breath, like she'd been holding it for days. "Thank you, officer. I was so afraid." But the officer's tone turned serious. "That said, these disputes can get ugly. My advice? Document everything. Save every notice. Record every encounter. If they cross the line again, you'll have a case." And just like that, they were gone, leaving behind more questions than answers. Grandma looked at me, her eyes wide. "Honey, I don't like this. Ezra's going to be furious we called the police." I leaned forward, gripping her hands. "Good, let him be furious. He needs to know he can't scare you anymore." But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning, because later that week, Ezra came back. Not with a clipboard this time, not with fines or photos. He came back with a crew. 3 men in work gloves and cool belts showed up in a pickup truck, unloading hammers, crowbars, and a portable saw. And Ezra? He stood in the middle of the yard with his arms crossed, smiling like a man about to win. "All right, gentlemen, let's get this illegal structure taken down." Grandma gasped, clutching my arm. "Honey, he's really going to do it." And that's when I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. The sound of crowbars hitting wood still echoes in my head. I stood there frozen for a second, watching those men climb up onto my grandma's patio like it was some condemned building. One of them started yanking down the fairy lights she'd hung so carefully. Another kicked at the flower pots, sending them tumbling to the ground, dirt spilling everywhere. And Ezra Thorne? He stood in the middle of the backyard with his arms crossed, smiling like he was a king watching his orders carried out. "Stop!" I shouted, running forward. "You can't do this! This is private property!" Ezra turned toward me, that smug look never leaving his face. "This structure violates HOA standards. The board has voted to remove it. Consider this official enforcement action." "You don't have the right," I snapped, fumbling with my phone. "This is destruction of property. I've already called the police." He leaned closer, his voice dripping with mockery. By the time they get here, sweetheart, this thing will be in pieces." Grandma's voice cracked behind me. "Please, please don't. This is my home. I just wanted a place to sit." But they didn't stop. One of the men started sawing at the wooden beams, the sound shrill and violent. My heart pounded as I ran forward, grabbing the fairy lights out of his hands. "Get out! Get out of this yard!" That's when I heard it, the distant wail of a siren. Ezra froze, his face tightening for just a second before he barked at the crew, "Keep going! Don't stop!" The squad car screeched to a halt out front, and 2 officers jumped out, the same ones who'd been at Grandma's house earlier in the week. "Hands off the tools!" the older cop barked as he pushed through the gate. "Everybody step away from the structure, now!" The workers dropped their crowbars instantly, backing off like kids caught stealing candy. But Ezra? He stood tall, chin high, like he owned the place. "Officers," he said smoothly, "this is HOA enforcement. The board voted on this action. We are within our rights to remove unapproved modifications." The younger cop, the one who'd shown concern before, glared at him. "No, sir. That's not how this works. You don't have authority to destroy someone else's property. Step away from the patio." Ezra scoffed. "With all due respect, officer, you clearly don't understand how homeowners associations function. We govern this neighborhood." "And we enforce the law," the older officer shot back. "You set one more tool on this woman's property, and you're committing criminal damage." For a moment, the whole yard went silent, except for the wind chime swaying gently above Grandma's rocking chair. Then Ezra's face twisted into something darker. "You can't stop progress. This neighborhood has standards, and if you let one person break the rules, it all falls apart." I stepped forward, shaking with rage. "This isn't about rules, Ezra. It's about control. You just like bullying people who can't fight back." The younger cop glanced at me, then turned back to Ezra. "Sir, if you don't leave now, we'll be forced to remove you. Do you understand?" For the first time, Ezra's mask cracked. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched, but eventually he snapped his fingers at the crew. "Pack it up. We're done here. For now." They shuffled back toward the truck, muttering under their breath. Grandma sat down hard in her chair, tears rolling down her cheeks as she whispered, "Thank you, officers. Thank you." But even as they pulled away, Ezra leaned over the fence, his eyes locking onto mine. His voice was low, but I heard every word. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming." A chill ran down my spine. The officers gave us one last piece of advice before leaving. "Keep documenting everything," the older cop said. "People like him push until someone pushes back harder. If he crosses the line again, we'll be ready." I nodded, but inside I was shaken. Ezra wasn't just angry, he was dangerous. And I had the gut feeling his next move would make everything before look like child's play. I thought maybe, just maybe, after the police standoff, Ezra would back off. I was wrong. For a couple of days, things were quiet. Grandma sat on her patio again, sipping tea under the fairy lights, though her hands still trembled whenever a car slowed in front of the house. I tried to reassure her. He knows he crossed the line. He won't try that again. But Ezra wasn't the type to back down. He was the type to come back harder. And his next move proved it. On a Thursday afternoon, Grandma's mailbox overflowed with thick envelopes, each one stamped with the HOA's seal. Inside were pages and pages of legal notices, threats of escalating fines, demands for payment, and even one document labeled Notice of Lien Intent. When Grandma read that one, her face went pale. "Honey, They're saying they can take my house." I grabbed the paper, scanning it quickly. "This is intimidation, Grandma. They can't just decide to take your house because of a patio. That takes a real court, not some neighborhood board." But she wasn't convinced. "What if the judge sides with them? What if—" Before she could finish, there was a knock at the door. Hard, loud. I opened it, and standing there was Ezra himself. But this time, he wasn't alone. A police officer stood beside him. "Good afternoon," Ezra said smoothly, pretending to be all polite. "We're here on official business. Mrs. Blackwood has refused to comply with community standards, and I've filed a complaint." The officer shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, I'm just here because a report was made. Mr. Thorne says you've been interfering with HOA enforcement and causing disturbances." My jaw dropped. Disturbances? He trespassed on her property. He tried to destroy her patio. Ezra held up a finger. "Allegedly. What we have here is a homeowner refusing to follow the rules. She signed the covenant when she bought the house. She knew what was expected." Grandma stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Officer, I've lived here 20 years. I've never had a single problem until Mr. Thorne became president. He's harassing me." The officer frowned, glancing between the three of us. I could see in his eyes he didn't want to be here, didn't want to get caught in the middle of some neighborhood feud. "Look," he said finally, "this sounds like a civil dispute. I can't arrest anyone for breaking HOA bylaws, but I can keep the peace. So here's the deal. No more trespassing, no more confrontations. If either of you cross the line again, we'll handle it." Ezra smirked, but his eyes burned with fury. "Fine, but this isn't over. The board has procedures, and we will pursue them." As he turned to leave, I muttered under my breath, "You just don't quit, do you?" He looked back at me, his voice low enough only I could hear. "When I'm done, that patio will be gone, and maybe the house too." My stomach nodded. This wasn't just about rules anymore. This was personal. After the door shut, Grandma sank into her chair, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Honey, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to lose my home." I crouched beside her, gripping her hand. "You're not going to lose it. He's trying to scare you. But you know what? He messed with the wrong family. If he wants a fight, we'll give him one." And that night, I sat down with my laptop and hit record. I spoke directly into the camera. "My grandmother built a patio. It was her dream. But our HOA president is trying to tear it down, threatening her home and harassing her every day. We need help." I posted the video online. I had no idea how fast it would spread. By morning, it had thousands of views. By the end of the week, it had millions. People all over the country were sharing Grandma's story, outraged, emotional, furious on her behalf. Messages poured in. Neighbors started stopping by to say they were on our side. Even local reporters reached out, asking if they could cover the story. Grandma couldn't believe it. All these people for me? I hugged her tight. For you. And they're not going to let Ezra win either. But Ezra wasn't going to take his humiliation quietly, because the very next day, as the news cameras rolled up to our street, Ezra showed up too, and this time, he wasn't smiling. By the time the news van pulled up to Grandma's street, half the neighborhood was outside. Some people stood on porches, others clustered on the sidewalk, whispering and pointing. Cameras rolled, microphones came out, and for the first time, Grandma's little patio wasn't just a backyard dream. It was the center of a community battle. Grandma sat nervously in her chair under the pergola, clutching her teacup like a shield. "Honey, I don't know about all this. I'm not used to cameras." I squeezed her shoulder. "You don't have to say anything. Just let people see the truth." But just as the reporter began setting up, the HOA president's black SUV rolled up the street. Ezra Thorne stepped out, his face tight, his jaw locked. And he wasn't alone. 4 other board members spilled out behind him, clipboards in hand, like soldiers marching into war. The crowd hushed as Ezra marched straight into Grandma's yard. "This circus ends today," he barked. "The board has voted unanimously. This patio is coming down." The reporter immediately swung her camera toward him. "Sir, are you saying you intend to forcibly remove this woman's patio despite police warnings?" Ezra sneered. "The HOA governs this neighborhood. We don't answer to outsiders. If every homeowner built whatever they wanted, this place would turn into chaos." The crowd booed, neighbors shouting back. One man yelled, "Leave her alone, Ezra!" Another woman added, "It's her yard, not yours." Ezra ignored them, waving at the board members. "Get the crew, start dismantling it, now." And once again, men with tools appeared, moving toward the patio. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. My voice shook, but it was steady enough. "This is my name. The HOA is trespassing again. They're attempting to destroy property. Please send officers immediately." By now, the neighbors had their phones out too. Dozens of cameras were recording every second. Ezra's crew reached for the beams, but before they could even touch the wood, the familiar sound of sirens pierced the air. 2 squad cars screeched to a stop, and the same officers from before rushed out. This time, though, they weren't playing around. "Step away from the structure," the older cop shouted, hand already on his holster. "Everyone drop your tools and step back now." The workers froze. The younger officer moved straight toward Ezra. "We warned you multiple times. You're under arrest for trespassing, harassment, and attempted destruction of property." The crowd erupted in cheers. Phones captured every angle as Ezra's face turned crimson. "This is outrageous. I am the HOA president. You can't arrest me for doing my job." The officer snapped cuffs onto his wrists with a cold finality. "Your job doesn't put you above the law." As Ezra was shoved toward the squad car, he shouted back at us, "This isn't the end. You'll regret this." But his words were drowned out by the sound of neighbors clapping, cheering, some even chanting, "Leave her patio alone!" Grandma sat stunned, tears sliding down her cheeks. She whispered, I never thought anyone would stand up for me." I knelt beside her, taking her hand. "You don't have to fight alone anymore, Grandma. The whole world's on your side now." The news cameras zoomed in, capturing every moment, the elderly woman in her rocking chair, the fairy light swaying gently above her, and the crowd of neighbors standing behind her like an army. That night the story aired on local TV. By morning it was everywhere, online, on national news, even trending on social media, with the hashtag #SaveGrandma's_Patio. The HOA board scrambled, issuing a statement about leadership changes and policy reviews. In other words, Ezra was done, removed, finished. And Grandma? She got more than just to keep her patio. She got her peace back. She got her dignity. And she got to see the whole community and millions of strangers online rally around her dream. One evening, a few weeks later, I sat on that patio with her. The fairy lights glowed softly, the wind chimes sang, and Grandma leaned back in her chair, sipping tea. "You know," she said with a little smile, "when I first dreamed of this patio, I never imagined it would start a war." I laughed. "Yeah, but you also didn't imagine it would make you the internet's favorite grandma either." She chuckled, her eyes twinkling. "Guess you're never too old to go viral." And in that moment I realized something. The patio wasn't just wood and lights and flowers. It was a symbol, a reminder that no matter how powerful bullies think they are, when people stand together, when they shine a light, justice wins. And Grandma, she finally had her perfect place to sit.